we live in a very interesting time. We live in a time where we want things of quality, where we want expensive things, but we want those things to come to us cheaply. Everyone wants a very fancy and nice car, for example, a Rolls Royce. However, there's a handful of them made in the world, in any particular year. And yet, most of the youth especially, they have this wish within their heart that I wish to own one, and their dua is simply that it appear outside of my home. Our state of Iman is something very similar. We want Iman to enter into our hearts with the snap of our fingers. There's a very famous English quote: nothing of quality ever comes cheap. And if it came cheap, it is not of quality. Iman, if you wish to really understand it and hone it and believe it and wish it to enter within your heart, you must work towards that Iman. You must work towards that belief, that faith. And that faith is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ayah that are recited for you, inshallah we'll get to this ayah. But the precursor, a couple of ayahs before this ayah, sets the stage for the ayah that I have recited. It's a very beautiful surah. All the surahs in the Quran are beautiful, but this is the middle surah. Surah number 57 of the 114 surahs of the Quran, Surah Al-Hadid. And this surah, by the way, in my opinion, is one of those surahs that hits on both aspects of human psychology. Clinical psychology says, whenever you wish to diagnose someone, you have to put them into categories. It's impossible to treat someone with a psychological problem without categorizing those specific categories that those individuals may be placed within. One of the simplest categories are the following. You can either be an individual with intellect, an intellectual, or you can be an emotional. They are not interconnected, and I'll give you an example. Someone with a PhD isn't an intellectual. Someone with a PhD isn't an intellectual. An intellectual is described in the realm of psychology with someone who doesn't believe in emotion. 2 + 2 = 4. When they understand this concept, you become an intellectual. An emotional individual simply speaks with the heart. It speaks with, you share with them some sob story about something and say, give us some money, they will share that money easily. An intellectual will say, you wish to build something within the masjid, show us the proof, show us the budget. And you can either be one of those two different things. This surah, Surah Al-Hadid, touches upon both of these concepts. Both the intellectual reasoning of a human and the emotional reasoning of a human being. And it touches upon in a few ayahs before the ayah that I recited, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, Iman will be shown as light of the believers. And that light will show a path towards Jannah. And the people of belief, the people of Iman, will begin to walk on this light, this pathway that has been illuminated by their faith. And at that point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, on that day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say that those people walking, there will be people behind him, and the people behind them will begin to speak, يَوْمَ يَقُولُ الْمُنَافِقُونَ وَالْمُنَافِقَاتِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا انظُرُونَا نَقْتَبِسْ مِنْ نُورِكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, on that day, the men who were hypocrites and the women who were hypocrites, they will beg the believers, O believers, wait for us so that we may obtain some of your light. We may obtain some of your nur. It will be said to them mockingly by a voice, go back to the world and seek the light there. Again, it is the day of judgment. A mother does not care even for her own child. يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَبَنِيهِ. There is no relationship now. The relationship is simply between your a'mal and Allah. And the decision is with Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Whether now you go into Jannah or whether now you go into Jahannam. So these people will say, give us some of your light. Allow us to obtain some of this light that you have that's illuminating your path towards Jannah. All of a sudden in the Quran it says, فَضُرِبَ بَيْنَهُمْ بِسُورٍ لَهُ بَابٍ. A gate will be erected in front of them, between them. And the gate behind the hypocrites is the torment that will be beginning to catch up to them. And the other side of the gate is the people of belief, the people with the nur, the people with the light. Jannah coming easier. The people who were chasing them are no more to be seen. And then the people who are behind that gate that has been erected, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, this is the ayah that I recited, يُنَادُونَهُمْ أَلَمْ نَكُمْ مَعَكُمْ. The tormented will cry out, were we not with you? Did we not pray with you? Did we not read salah with you? Did we not give sadaqah along with you? Did we not complete umrah and hajj with you? And the people of believing, they will say, قَالُوا بَلَا وَلَكِنَّكُمْ فَتَنْتُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ. He says, yes you were, but you were tempted. What were you tempted with? وَتَرَبَّصْتُمْ وَارْتَبْتُمْ وَغَرَّتْكُمُ الْأَمَانِيُّ حَتَّى جَاءَ أَمْرُ اللَّهِ. You were tempted by hypocrisy, eagerly awaiting your demise and doubted the truth. What is this temptation that you get into? And here's where psychology begins to come in. There's a very famous psychological quote. This is by 20th century psychologists now. They say, show us an individual up to the age of 70. Show us a child by the age of 70, and we will show you a man at the age of 70. And show us a child at the age of 7, and we will show to you a man at the age of 70. The first 7 years, if you can understand the psychology of that child, you will understand its adolescence, its teenage, and its adulthood. So here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, yes, those individuals will begin to talk to each other. We were with you. We were with you. And those people with the light, they will call back, you were with us, but you were tempted. What does that temptation look like? The temptation is something similar to this. We'll just go out to, for the youth, we'll just go out to one more party. We'll just attend one more thing, and inshallah we will obtain and we will change. Faith and iman, neither does it become good with a snap of a finger, as I mentioned in the beginning, nor does it become evil with a snap of a finger. Both things take time. Both things take time. And in both ways, you try to either make your nafs good, your soul good, your ruh good, or the other way around. And so the youth, and we delude ourselves, we say, give us, and we will do just one more, and we will do just one more, and we will do just one more. And the second thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alluding to in this ayah is a psychological disease that affects just about everyone in today's day and age. It's called procrastination. They will continue to delude themselves and continue to delude themselves and continue to delude themselves until the fate of Allah, meaning death, will arrive towards them. And we see this everywhere. What do we see? And I like to hear this one a lot, especially for those individuals who are eagerly waiting the day of Ramadan, the month of Ramadan. What do they say? They say, inshallah, Ramadan is 10 months away. We will begin then. Or those individuals who have bought a ticket for Umrah or Hajj. Umrah is just around the corner. Let us do what we need to do now. And inshallah, on the day of Umrah, when we go on that plane ride, we will make a niyyah, like a niyyah that no one has ever seen before. And we will leave everything to this world. Many of us are guilty of the same. And the reason this procrastination begins to grow is because of the company around you, because of the hypocrisy that you surround yourselves with. We sometimes say that why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continuing to test our iman? Well, the answer to that is simple. Why do you put yourselves in a situation where your iman must be tested? Would your iman be tested in the house of Allah? In the company of the people of Allah? Imagine coming to the mosque 5 times a day. Where is the hypocrisy and the situational hypocrisy going to attack you from? You are in the company, the suhbah of the people of Allah in the house of Allah. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. But these people, because of the company, is a very, very famous narration in Tirmidhi, Sahih narration. Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala, he says, a man is known, narrated by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, A man's iman is known by the iman of his best friend. So befriend someone carefully. If you wish, and again, in Western psychology, a friend is known by the company he keeps. A friend is known by the company he keeps. An individual, when he begins to do this, and in psychology, especially when you're tackling addiction, this is how we tackle addiction. We don't simply say, you're addicted to cigarettes, you're addicted to drugs, you're addicted to X, Y, and Z. You say, what caused that addiction? And usually where addiction begins from is this. They started from a root, from something small, and they began to do it over and over and over again until they deluded themselves into the false feeling that they could stop at any point. They could stop this addiction, they could stop the smoking, they could stop whatever the bad habit was at any point. When they realize and come to a crux in their life that this addiction that they're suffering cannot be stopped, that's when guilt sets in. So in Islam, for example, if you know, for example, the youth, especially nowadays, in universities, I studied in universities, alcohol is rampant amongst the Muslim youth in Canadian universities. It is rampant. And usually what it is, it's just one drink. What is it? It's just 1% alcohol. Now, I've heard of this with my own ears. And so it says, one drink won't harm me, 2 drinks won't harm me, a drink, leisurely drink, a casual drink, a social drink won't harm me. Why would Allah ask me to forbid myself from something that I am enjoying? I am not hurting anyone. And so when this crux of the matter occurs and an individual is unable to stop, guilt sets in. And that guilt is the most dangerous thing when it comes to your iman. Because what does that guilt say? I am a terrible human being. I can never enter Jannah. I will enter Jahannam. When that guilt comes in, your nafs and shaitan see you as the most vulnerable creature on earth because no one likes to feel guilty. So what does shaitan do? He comes in, swoops in, and the shaitan begins to say, why are you feeling guilty? You know whose fault it is? It's Islam. Islam makes you feel this way. Islam is the problem. Why would Allah ever put you in such a situation? Allah is Ghafoor Rahim. Allah is Rahman and Rahim and Malik and Quddus. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all of these things. He doesn't want you to feel this. And when that, almost like a guardian angel, understand the dichotomy here of shaitan, the devil, coming in as a guardian angel for your guilt, coming in and saying this to you, you say, you know what? He has a point. And when that guilt comes in, you begin to ask a person with no knowledge of philosophy, comes in, begins to say, what is the point of deen? What is the point of religion? What is the point of this and what is the point of that? You know what it is? It's YOLO, you only live once. This is where children's psychology goes and works against them with no understanding of the deep understanding of faith. And where does it all begin from? Suhbah. Where does it all begin from? Suhbah. And that is why, my dear brothers and my dear sisters, it's so important that you bring your children into mahafil, into the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll share one last narration about the importance of suhbah because parents ask a very interesting question. They say, our children don't want to come to the masjid. We cannot force them. So why should we bring them to the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Very famous narration. There is a species of angels, mafhum of the ahadith, who are orbiting the earth, circumnavigating the earth with a singular purpose. What is their purpose? Find a gathering where the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned. And how do they find this gathering? With the noor. Every time you say the word Allah, noor emanates from your mouth. Allah. And so these angels, they come and they begin to join the gathering in the house of Allah, in your particular houses, wherever this gathering that may be. Eventually, other angels come and there's no place to sit. So what do? They begin to sit on top of one another, like building blocks, until they reach the first sky of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mafhum of the ahadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends upon the first sky. And He says, oh my angels, what is this peculiar thing that you're doing? Why are you stacked on top of one another up to the first sky of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The angels, they say, Ya Allah, you gave us a purpose, we fulfilled the purpose. We found the gathering in which your name was being mentioned. So Allah will say, And why are my people, my slaves, gathered in this gathering? They say, Ya Allah, they're gathered because they want your Jannah. Allah will ask a very interesting question. Have they seen my Jannah? Angels will respond, no, Ya Allah, they have not seen Jannah. Allah will then ask another interesting question. What would they do if they were to see my Jannah? The angels will respond, Ya Allah, they will glorify your name. They will majestify your name with even more vigor. And Allah will say, why else are some other people gathered there? The angels will respond, some of them are gathered there out of fear of Jahannam. Have they seen my Jahannam? Allah will ask, no, they have not seen your Jahannam, Ya Allah. What would they do if they were to see my Jahannam? Ask Allah again. They would glorify your name over and over and with even more supremacy, say the angels. So Allah they will then say, O angels, then go down and tell all of them that their sins have been forgiven. The gates of Jannah have been opened and the gates of Jahannam have been closed. As they're coming down, one angel stops. And he says to Allah, O Allah, but there are some people there in that gathering who ended up there by mistake. They don't want Jannah. They don't fear Jahannam. In today's layman terms, they were dragged to the house of Allah by their parents. They were forced to come to the house of Allah. What about them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond, because of the way my name is mentioned, even for them forgive their sins, even for them open the gates of Jannah, and even for them close the gates of Jannah. Because of their pious company, the Suhbah that they are sitting with. This, my dear brothers, is the crux of the matter that we wanted to discuss with you in this khutbah today. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to understand and sit with the Suhbah that is the pious worshippers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Suhbah that loves Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, and understand it, we get every day closer and closer to the day of judgment. A minor sign of the day of judgment is that animals will begin to speak with humans. Today, AI, just today, this morning, if you read BBC News, AI technology is able to communicate with bats. You can Google this when you go home today. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from the torments of Jahannam, from the torments of the day of judgment. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open up the gates of Jannah for us. And oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you give us Jannah in the neighborhood, in the footsteps of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Ameen. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.